Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our Mind the Gap session. We're from Exclusive Networks, your trusted cybersecurity distributor. And today we're going to talk about how DNS security is actually missed in a lot of companies and we find breaches. So that's why we combine actually an EDR vendor named SentinelOne and a DNS security specialist, Infoblox. All right, quick introduction. My name is Stefan Wolf. I'm a business development manager at Exclusive Networks. I've been at Exclusive since 2017. I got a rather technical background. And my real focus now today is actually all emerging vendors and everything I can do to support those partners and vendors with that. We do a lot of sessions here at Exclusive. We focus on vendor agnostic sessions like our EDR, XDR, NDR session we did last month, but also some more cooler sessions regarding a few technologies like dark web prices, machine learning, webinars, etc. And my colleague.
Hi, everybody. My name is Peter. I'm a pre-sales engineer, and I joined Exclusive since March last year, so almost coming up 1 year anniversary now. My focus is on multiple vendors in the Exclusive Networks portfolio, but today my focus will be on Infoblox, and I'd like to help partners with all things pre-sales related.
All right, so why our combination EDR and DNS security? Well, with an EDR tool, we have a lot of visibility on the endpoint, and we actually see everything because a good EDR tool is like a data flight recorder. The moment you start your PC or your server, we see everything that's happening on that endpoint. But what we don't have with an EDR tool is insights in DNS traffic. I mean, that's more network specific, and that's something that is very niche, but really important because with DNS insights, we see a lot of potential issues within an organization. So combining those two will actually increase the coverage on MITRE ATT&CK framework, which we'll explain later. And we're actually going to do a demonstration and then going to use those indicators of compromise we see based on those DNS insights we have for further investigation in our EDR. So for us, this was actually a no-brainer to combine those two vendors to do this session. So first, the MITRE coverage. Well, MITRE framework, maybe you don't know it, so I'll do a quick recap. With MITRE framework, we actually see different stages during the attack. Okay, starting from the recon and the initial access to actually the data exfiltration and the impact we have on that organization and everything between it. Do we need full coverage for every domain? I don't think so. It's rather impossible, and you need way too many products to do that. But what is important is a good coverage, and that in one of those steps during an attack, we actually be able to catch the attacker and see what is happening. So for me, MITRE is actually a nice version of Battlestar or Battleship, better, where you can say, all right, at a certain point with code execution or with privilege escalation, I want to be able to detect an attack. So that's the whole idea. And with just the two tools that we're going to present today, in EDR, SentinelOne, and DNS security of Infoblox, we will have a rather good coverage because DNS security can already cover a lot of stuff based on initial access. For example, email, but rather important, the link in an email is still #1 vector today with every attack. So every link that we have is a DNS request. Okay, so if we already cover that DNS request, we also cover a lot of potential attacks. So initial access is very good coverage with DNS security because DNS will, for every lookup, we can see if it's a phishing domain, it's a malicious domain, etc. So based on either static lists of Infoblox or more machine learning algorithms, we can detect already malicious domain. Our EDR, on the other end, will focus on behavior on that endpoint. Okay, so based on process execution and what that process is doing, we will correlate every event based on whatever is happening on an endpoint. So once an attacker is in, the next steps for an EDR will be detect code execution, but also be able to detect persistence. Okay, persistence is a way to have a backdoor inside an organization, but also for credential access. Once I'm in as an attacker, I want to get as far as I can get with the best possible credentials, preferably admin or domain admin. So you're going to go lateral movement, and then next step, okay, you want to have the command and control traffic. So command and control is actually your attacker will be able to control your victim. That command and control traffic needs to pass somewhere. Okay, normally it will be through HTTP, HTTPS, which can be covered by firewall or other solutions. But if you're a really good attacker, you can also leverage a DNS protocol. And again, this is where Infoblox will really be good at, because we can block every DNS request and we can see the DNS request. So we can both actually cover the HTTP, HTTPS, but also the DNS protocol, because we look inside a protocol and we see what is going on. Same for data exfiltration. It's easy to data exfil through HTTPS, but that's yeah, I guess now it's very fast. But again, if you misuse DNS protocol, it's a solution like Infoblox that will cover that. So both tools will be able to give you a better coverage on MITRE.
So I'll walk you through the Infoblox solution that we'll be talking about today, more specifically the Blox One threat defense solution, which is specifically the DNS security part, which Infoblox has in its offering, which makes a lot of sense actually. DNS is used for a lot of attacks, ransomware, data exfil, command and control, as Stan mentioned, but it makes sense to use DNS as the first line of defense for those cyber threats. Blox One Threat Defense is a SaaS-based solution or a cloud-based solution. So that means that it can be flexible and very reliable. And it's also very scalable and easy to implement, which I will show you later in the demo. But also, since it's Infoblox, they have a lot of insight and intel to detect modern malware, ransomware, phishing, exploit kits, etc. And they have highly accurate threat intelligence, and they have machine learning based analytics. Now, most of you know Infoblox as a traditional DDI solution vendor, which is what they're very established in, but it actually makes a lot of sense for them to offer a DNS security solution. They have a lot of insight in all DNS traffic that's going on around the globe, and they have a history of providing reliable intel, threat intel, and providing indicators of compromise that can be used in your SOC, but also in the threat feeds that they offer. These are some of the threat feeds that are available and that you can use to block or to log malware that is being used over DNS. These are dynamically generated lists that are constantly alive and are being kept from keeping stale based on the Infoblox threat intel. What's interesting as well, I will show you during the demo as well, but these come each with their own recommendation of what the impact can be from a security point of view, but also what the amount of false positives can be with an explanation of what each and everything is, so you can make an informed decision based on what is important for you. Very important is that it doesn't rely on your traditional DNS infrastructure. It's a hybrid model. It can work wherever you are deployed. So that means if you have a traditional grid working in your data center, fine, you can use the DNS security part. If you have an HQ or branch offices where not a lot of people are running, fine, you can use a DNS forwarder on-prem. What we're going to focus on today is a remote user. For remote users can be protected in the same way, even for these DNS attacks, via an agent. And we're talking about remote users not only on their laptops, but also on their mobile devices.
Right, now back to the EDR tool, SentinelOne. For those who don't know SentinelOne, again, quick recap. So SentinelOne is a SaaS-based platform, but at least for management. But we run on actually every known OS there is now today. So Windows, client server, Mac, iOS, Linux, Android, Kubernetes, any other public cloud you can think of, VDI environments, we all support it. So one agent rules them all. What SentinelOne focuses on is actually different types of protection layers. So we get the first prevention and control. With prevention, we actually cover the traditional AV and next-gen AVs, where we will focus on our two specific engines. It's our static engine who will look at metadata to protect you when we see a malicious file. Okay, so it's not a signature, but it's based on different characteristics of that file that we can see with a machine learning algorithm to see if it's malicious or not, quite high certainty. And that combined with actually a lot of control features like firewall control, device control, application control, stuff like that to actually make sure we decrease that attack surface. Combine that with our detection and response capabilities, and you've got actually, best of breed combines an EPP and EDR tool in one agent, lightweight agent. So our detection is based on our behavioral engine, and that is actually what we see. Okay, again, it's like a flight data recorder. The moment your PC turns on, we will record everything that happens, and then we do a correlation. And based on different actions, it could be malicious, and then we will intervene with a different type of response. Okay, those response could be a remediation of your endpoint. So any backdoor an attacker created, we can just clean it up, or even just a full rollback for files that are deleted or encrypted in any way. We can combine that with some network visibility. We got an NDR feature that's called Ranger to really scan your network and to give you more control again about what is entering your network. The focus of today will be very much the EDR functionality, but not the automatic EDR, but more automatic EDR, but more the manual threat hunting, what we're going to do. So we're going to, based on an IOC we're going to look inside of our data lake to see what event is correlated with that specific DNS query. This is actually very cool because it's still a lot of the correlation already has been done by SentinelOne. SentinelOne did not trigger yet because it's a very specific subset that we're going to search for, and mainly in a PowerShell script that's running certain things through DNS. But it will give you an overview about which process, which user is responsible for actually doing this stuff. So very focused on threat hunting on EDR too. We're going to do it ourselves, but you can also do that through some automations. Okay, we are an XDR player, which means we have automations and integrations with other players. Can be threat feeds, but it can also be response capabilities through the marketplace. Threat hunting is something we're going to do now ourselves, but that can also be a service from SentinelOne. Okay, or partners can do that, or end users can do that. But it's also a service from SentinelOne will guide you and will do threat hunting for you. And you can even combine it with an MDR service, managed detection response service, or even further, if there's a really bad incident, we can do digital forensics and incident response also. I can talk about products all day, but I think test results speak for themselves. So this is the results of the latest MITRE beginning last year. And SentinelOne really had 100% visibility. And I think that's important. You may be able not to trigger on everything, but you have that full visibility about what is happening in your endpoint. So we had 0 misdetections, and at a certain point, SentinelOne will detect something and will be able to correlate everything because we log everything. And what is also very important is that we have 0 configuration changes needed to get these results, which means that with MITRE, you get like, again, a second chance actually. The first time they run it, and then you are able to do some changes, and then you can run it again. But from the first try, we had the 0 detections and 0 missed and 100% visibility. So out of the box, the product works very well. And we are an EDR solution or an XDR solution, but we do it at machine speed at the endpoint itself. So that means that we don't need the cloud for a better catch rate because the intelligence of machine learning algorithms are inside the agent on your endpoint. We use cloud for example, in this use case, a data lake to actually look for certain indicators of compromise.
All right, a quick run through to the demo setup. We're gonna show you how data exfiltration will work over PowerShell code via DNS. We'll show you, I will give you a quick run through to the Blocks One threat defense platform. And then we're gonna show you how that would look at SentinelOne and how we can leverage SentinelOne by using the hunting queries to detect and stop those on SentinelOne in the future themselves. So about the architecture, this is specifically the threat defense architecture. We're going to be focusing on the top left part, so the roaming clients, remote offices part, specifically roaming clients. So we have an endpoint of a virtual machine, Windows 10 machine, where there's an Infoblox agent on installed and a SentinelOne agent. The DNS traffic will be forwarded to the Blocks One threat defense cloud. where will you use the threat insights to look into the DNS exfiltration that we're going to run. You can see there's still an on-premises part. That on-premises part can also communicate with cloud. And as you can see, all those threat feeds and those IOCs, all those DNS data can be used in your SOC in various amounts of security vendors or solutions that you have running in your network. And that information can be used there as well. So some quick notes about the data exfiltration over DNS. In our use case today, we have a compromised device. That compromised device can be an insider threat, someone who stole credentials, and a device that can run code. So what is going to happen? The malware, in this case, the script that we're going to run is going to use the DNS channel to send data. The data will be extracted over DNS queries that are being run. So this is a very effective way of stealing files while staying under the radar. Why? Because traditional security does not usually inspect DNS traffic. DNS traffic is the backbone of the internet, the backbone of your network. The general tendency is to just allow DNS because it's so crucial for general functionality. Which is why it's very useful that we, with Infoblox, try to get in the middle of that traffic. So if you're going to protect against it, the DNS queries get forwarded to a threat defense platform where they're going to run DNS analytics. And based on that information, we can block the outgoing DNS requests, and the file will not get stolen in the end, which is what we're going to show you now.
So now Peter will show his virtual environment and the threat defense web portal also. He's just changing screens. Yeah. All right. Bear with us, it's a live demo, so yeah, have some patience. All right, there it is.
All right, so I've got two screens going on here. I have one part being my virtual machine, which, as you can see, is running a BloxOne endpoint agent and a SentinelOne agent. What I'm going to use for the data exfiltration is a demo portal provided by Infoblox, where we're going to run a script based on a file name. So as you can see on my desktop here, I have a file name that's called data exfil test. I use that file name here, and I will let the exfiltration portal generate the script for me. And it's going to run a PowerShell script for that file, looking for that file in the folder that we're in. And it's going to chunk that file or cut that file into chunks and send it over DNS to the portal. So we're effectively stealing that file from this desktop here over DNS. Oh, sorry. It's looking for the file in the folder that I'm in. It's living on my desktop. So there we go. Now you can see in separate chunks that file is being sent over DNS queries. If you look into our demo portal, we can see that those chunks are coming in steady. So the file is being cut into 971 chunks. Those chunks are steadily coming in. So while this exfil is happening, let me walk you through to the BloxOne portal. So if you log in, we land on this dashboard here, where there are multiple dashboards available. In our case, we're specifically focusing on the security dashboard, where we can see the severity events. We can see the DNS firewall activity. You see there's a lot of activity here right now because of the demo that we're running right now and the demo preparation that we run beforehand. As I mentioned earlier during the presentation as well, we're currently working agent-based, which is quite easy to do actually. So if you go to administration and downloads, you can see here you have a Mac endpoint client and a Windows endpoint client generally available for you. If you want to use the on-prem DNS forwarding, you can use that as well. you have several packages here to forward your DNS traffic to the Blox1 threat defense for checks. You can download the root SSL certificate as well. This is not for this is for general functionality. Why? Because if you want to redirect to a blocking page, you will get a certificate error unless you install the certificate. So it's just for the landing page, actually. Once the agent is installed, we can see them here in all of our endpoints. So all the endpoints with an agent installed, they will arrive here with the endpoint name, with the user that is logged in, MAC address, OS version, etc. So this is the one we're looking at now. This one is active. This is the PC name, and I'm logged in with this user. What's very interesting is we can group those endpoints. So I created a group here, specifically for this demo, where I landed this endpoint. And based on this endpoint group, we can go and create policies. So you can very granularly, based on whatever group you want, configure security policies. So I have the endpoint, I have the endpoint group. I mentioned the word policies for quite some time now, so let's go to those. I created an endpoint protection policy here. Which we're going to go over now. So if you want to create a security policy, this is where we're landing. We can create a policy name, give it a good description, and we have two checkboxes here that can be useful, depending on your use case. So the first one is geolocation, which will give location-specific results if you have a global environment. For those countries where you need to be in control of all your data at all times, you can use the local on-prem resolution. Standard, you can see that the DNS requests are being forwarded to the cloud DNS firewall here and being filtered there as well. If you use the local on-prem resolution, then you can still use the traditional way of resolving, and then afterwards the request gets sent to the cloud DNS firewall, which can be useful for those countries where that data protection is really important. As you can see in the background here, the DNS exfil is still running. So about the network scope, we're focusing on the endpoint groups now, but we have a lot of other sources available. We can use that on DNS forwarding groups. We can use user groups. We can have a lot of stuff here. Specifically now, I used my one endpoint group where that agent is residing. Now we get to the interesting part, the policy rules, the actual policies that you can enforce. I have a default action of allow, just to show you what we can do with blocking. And we can use multiple ways of creating policies. If you have your own threat intel, or if you have your own SOC, where you can find indicators of compromise that are important to your specific customers, you can add them in a custom list. I showed you the slide with all the threat feeds earlier. You can use those as well. So if you go here, let's say anti-malware, this is what I was talking about earlier. So exposure to this threat may cause significant damage to your network, high, and the confidence is also high. Low probability, apologies, of resulting in false positives. Yeah. So based on that information, you can make an informed decision what you want to do with this DNS traffic. Those are the threat insights. We also can apply category filters. So based on a general category, let's say you want to block all things that are drugs related, you can just enter those, and those will be blocked on the DNS level. I have an application filter here as well, which I can show you in a little bit, where we're just going to block retransfer. Yeah. We're going to block with a default redirect. I'll show you what that looks like in just a bit. And then you can configure bypass codes should you want to bypass any of the policies for a reason. And then you have the summary here, where you have a quick overview of everything that you configured. So that's very useful. Just in one lookup, everything that you're gonna save and close. So just about the retransfer part. So if you look up retransfer, we can do that, but just via ping at the moment. And as you can see here, we're being redirected to the block page. So retransfer is effectively being blocked on a DNS level. As you can see here in the background, the script has stopped running. So let's go back to our portal and see if we have a file. Yeah, so the whole file has been sent to this portal here. And this is the file that was stolen from my desktop. Yeah, as you can see, this is the same file that is running on here. Yeah, so that file was effectively being stolen over DNS. What we can do now with the policy, I told you before, maybe you saw it as well. I created a policy already for retransfer. But I have a policy here based on the feeds and threat insights, and the threat insight being specifically the data exfiltration, which is currently allowed with a logging function, but which I'm now going to block and redirect to a null route. So when I click finish and save and close, this policy will now be enforced from the cloud. So the policies are always enforced from the threat defense portal. They are not done on the agent. So this means that enforcing that policy will happen very quickly. Now I'm going to run the exact same script. And what you can see is that this goes a lot faster than before. If you go back to our portal here, this is still the other file that was in. If I refresh this, it restarts, but you can see that no new chunks are coming in. So effectively, Infoblox threat defense is now blocking the data exfiltration of that same file running that via that PowerShell script. So I think this is really, really cool. And as you can see, it didn't take a lot of effort and it works very fast. So that's that. We know it's now being blocked, but how can we find that back? If you go to reports and go to security activity, we get an overview of all the threat insights, the DNS firewall threats, the threat view, what devices, what users are impacted. You can see the security events over a certain timeline, and you can see what's going on. So you can see from where it's coming, what is happening. So you can see that the threat insight is data exfiltration. But you can also go and see what devices are impacted. And what user is logged in. So the cool thing is about this agent, whatever user is logged in gets sent to Infoblox as well, which is very useful information. We can see what the domain lookups are. If I can just slide over here a little bit. So you can see the queries that are being run. So we know that DNS exfiltration is happening because the threat insight is mentioning it to us. And what we can see here is that there's always a general factor here, being the smithy.com domain. So we can use that information being the endpoint, being that we have DNS exfiltration and the general denominator or the common denominator being Smithy. We can use that information in SentinelOne to go threat hunting. Now you may wonder, why doesn't SentinelOne alert us of this process that data exfil is happening? As I mentioned before, they can see it. We're going to use the data that they can see to use or to go threat hunting. But for them, currently it's DNS traffic. They are not aware that something malicious is going on at this moment. So we're going to use the threat hunting to enforce that from the portal.
Yeah, indeed, because now at this point, you are just running a PowerShell script who is doing DNS requests. Infoblox, with their specific knowledge about DNS security, will alert you and will advise you then, okay, let's use this information then to threat hunt with your EDR tool. But an EDR solution, yeah, won't be able to just trigger on this alone. It will need more information, like was there an exploit used before running that script? or any other malware or malicious activity. I mean, this is just a subset and DNS exfil, but that's the beauty from it, from an attacker point of view, of course. You can use DNS for everything. Either is it for downloading tools on your endpoint, we can, instead of exfiltration, do DNS infiltration. We're going to misuse the DNS protocol to download tools like Mimikatz, for example. No tool to steal credentials from clients or servers. So DNS is just the meaning we're going to misuse as an attacker to tunnel traffic through. And this is where Infoblox shines in actually capturing that, what is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for the point of being at the live demo and to go live threat hunting, we don't get the live forwarding of the logs on the endpoint. So for the sake of time, we prepared this beforehand and took screenshots of the entire threat hunting process. So what you can see here is the hunting query that we've ran on SentinelOne based on the information we got from Infoblox threat defense, or Blox1 threat defense rather. So we know the endpoint name, we know that DNS is being used, and we found that common denominator being Smitty. And as you can see, we have a lot of DNS events. So SentinelOne does see those events. They can see that it's PowerShell. They can see that DNS requests are being done to that domain.
So what happened here actually is we created a rule, and based on DNS information, SentinelOne already did a correlation and showed us, okay, every event related to that DNS request. So any file changes, any registry changes, any process behavior will all be in the same event list.
Yeah, as you can see here, it can see the DNS details as well for that request. So we can add those to the query and go very granular in our search. We are now looking for the Infoblox endpoints, or the PC-as1 Infoblox endpoint specifically, so we can gather all the information that is happening on this endpoint. But in the future, we can use this information as well to look into depth in this information on other endpoints. So we're going to add this to the query, and if we go to the storylines, apologies, we can even find the command script that we've run. So we can find part of the script that we ran in PowerShell to use the data exfil, which is very, very useful information if we want to create a custom rule in the future in order to prevent this.
Well, so this is what EDR is all about. Okay, with an assumed breach posture, we still need that perfect detections where we don't want any misses. So if there's anything happening on the endpoint that didn't trigger yet, we want to know what happens. So the EDR tool should give you that visibility to see what happens. So you can do, or forensics team can actually check, okay, what is happening, what happened, and here you see just the command script that ran to do the DNS exfiltration.
So now we found the script. We know that malicious DNS requests happen to the Smitty domain. So we can look very granularly at all the events that have transpired. And what we then can do eventually is not only create a custom rule based on the script, but we can make things even easier. We can mark this specific behavior as suspicious. So what will happen then, if this is marked as suspicious, then for all the other endpoints that are making malicious DNS requests to that specific domain, that will be run as suspicious. That will be marked as suspicious. So now from one endpoint and one endpoint that has given information via the threat defense, this can be leveraged across the whole enterprise. Which we can look like this. For this one, this is an example of the custom IOC rule that we created. So this is based on that PowerShell script using the Infoblox. So when we ran that again, we got incidents on SentinelOne, which is the perfect synergy, I think, of the both solutions working together.
Yeah, indeed, because what you're going to do now is actually out of the box, SentinelOne gives you a good coverage, actually great coverage, but you can still want for it, especially enterprises still want to have their own custom rule sets. So with start, SentinelOne, storyline, active response, you'll be able to create your own rules based maybe like this on DNS exfiltration stuff we've seen in our organization. So you can create your own general, very granular rule and then treat this like an incident or at least suspicious of malicious activity. So it will be triggered, and it will give you the whole storyline overview about okay, what is happening, which process is responsible, what happened with that process, any other stuff or really impacted anything on our endpoint or server. So I think that Peter captured quite well. It's a combination of two excellent products, which actually just increase your coverage and increase your detection and protection also.
And that's everything we have for you currently in a nutshell. So we've done the data exfiltration over PowerShell. We can see how we can block it via the threat defense. We can see what else we can do with threat defense. We showed you how SentinelOne can be used to how to handle those IOCs and how the two products can work in synergy. So we want to thank you. And if you have any questions about this, please go ahead.
Can you do the chat? Yeah. All right, we have one question coming in. How can Infoblox actually see all DNS requests? Because isn't DNS over HTTPS and TLS a thing nowadays?
Yes, it is. In general, that can be, if you're on-prem, that can be blocked on a firewall. But with the threat defense, those threat feeds that they have, they also have those domains that are attached to those DNS over HTTPS servers, and they can block those as well.
All right. So we got another question. Would Vigilance be able to? Vigilance is a service of SentinelOne, the Managed Detection and Response service. Will be able to help you with IOC rules handling. The answer is yes. So Vigilance is the Managed Detection and Response team. If you have products in place with threat feeds like Infoblox, that team will be able to handle you, create the right queries, to create the right rules, to be able to for SentinelOne to cover and trigger on those events. So yes, Vigilance can help you with IOC rules. I'm still going to give you a minute to ask any other question. Here we got another question. Is there an issue with installing that much agents on endpoints? Because we all went away from agents and now we're adding new agents all the time. Well, I will start from the SentinelOne part. I think an endpoint agent is still necessary. And we should focus on the whole EPP, EDR on one agent part, because I believe that's the best way to go. But you need something to cover those roaming clients also. And I think like DNS security is a good way with a roaming agent.
Yeah, I agree. I did a lot of testing in preparation for this demo. There was no interference with the agents altogether. They're very lightweight, so that's very useful. But there's a use case for everything, right? So if you have a lot of on-prem servers, you want to install an agent on all of them? No, not necessarily. You can use the on-prem DNS forwarder. If you have a roaming client, it's very easy to just change the DNS servers to whatever you want, so you can bypass those. If you don't want to bypass those, then an agent is the best way to go. So there's a use case for everything, I think.
Yeah, I think you can cover everything actually with both SentinelOne and Infoblox, because if it's Kubernetes environment, SentinelOne has an agent to protect your Kubernetes, and every DNS request just will go sent to the forwarder of Infoblox. So you can cover that. You can even cover IoT devices just based on Infoblox, because it's just DNS.
Yeah, absolutely.
While DNS seems easy or simple, there are only a few that can actually do it very good, and it's very powerful. I mean, when something went wrong in our offices a few years ago, the first reaction was, oh no, it's DNS. Because if DNS goes wrong, everything goes wrong. So that's why if you're going to do it, you're going to do it with the right product, like Infoblox.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any more questions coming in. We have 15 minutes to spare, so enjoy your day and enjoy that extra 15 minutes. We'd like to thank you for showing up and listening and asking questions. And if you have any other questions or you need some more information regarding Infoblox or SentinelOne, just please contact us. All right, have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.